Welcome to the brand new SwamiLee Remembers. This is a new series we're going to have where the Swami is going to sit around and talk about something he remembers from way, way back when. In this case, it's going to be the 1988 Orioles, otherwise known as Demos. For those who don't know, the Orioles had a tough year in 1988, and also it was my first year of college. And here I am at Towson State University, about 20 minutes from Memorial Stadium. It was pretty exciting for me for 1988 season to begin, and my Brewers were in town, which was great. I couldn't believe I was excited. I had my Brewers shirt, my Brewers jacket, my Brewers shoes, my Brewers colored pants. True story, by the way. I had a pair of Vans shoes that were Brewers colors. And it was great. I remember skipping my Spanish class that was at 2 o'clock, and everybody knew I was going to be there. I actually missed intramural basketball. Not that I ever played. I was pretty much on the bench, although they did call me instant offense. But I did not even get to the championship game, which we lost anyway. I was going to the Brewers game and sitting in the upper level, watching the Brewers manhandle the Orioles. Final score was 12-0. Higuera went 7. Clear went 1. Plesac went 1. It was an amazing game. It was a great time. Only the third Brewers game I'd ever been to, and I watched the Orioles get slaughtered. Well, the second game, unfortunately, the Brewers were in town again, but it rained really bad. They did play the game, but I didn't go. And I had free tickets, by the way, because a friend of mine was working for the Orioles, but I didn't go. There'll be more times, hopefully. So anyway, the season begins. They lose a game, they lose a game, they lose a game, and then they fire Cal Ripken Sr. and they replace him with Frank Robinson, the Hall of Famer, who also is the first black manager in baseball history. Unfortunately for Mr. Robinson, it didn't go well. They lost and they lost, and they lost in the worst possible ways. Then they released a longtime Oriole, Scott McGregor. They got rid of Jim Dwyer. They were kicking around a bunch of guys that you wouldn't believe. What were they even doing on this team? It was bad. Then the Royals came to town. And I remember going to the game with a buddy of mine, and we saw Bo Jackson, which was amazing. Bo's thighs were the size of tree trunks. It was unbelievable. Then we went to the Orioles bullpen, stood above it, and I yelled, "You guys suck. You guys suck." Kind of rude of me, I admit it to you, but I was young and immature. Well, the Oriole Bird was there, and he heard me. So the Oriole Bird got on his little trike that he had, he laid on his back, and he made obscene stroking gestures towards me. We've been talking about that now for 32 years. One of the funniest things that's ever happened to me at a sporting event. And I respected the Oriole Bird from that day forward. I also saw the Orioles lose to just about everybody and anybody. As I went to 12 games that year, the Orioles had 2 wins and 10 losses in games that I attended. I was able to see such players. We could go on for hours and some of the players that I saw. I mean, Jose J.J. Bautista went 6-15. I mean, Oswaldo Peraza had an ERA of 5.55, which back in the 80s was actually a high ERA. Doug Sisk came over from the Mets. He was terrible. It was just amazing watching these guys. They couldn't pitch. They couldn't hit. They couldn't field. Eddie Murray, Hall of Famer Eddie Murray, only knocked in 84 runs that year. One of their best hitters was a Punch and Judy hitter, Joe Orsulak. Orsulak hit 288, but he was a nice fourth outfielder, but he had to start for this team. Well, anyway, by the time we got to the late in the streak, you started seeing bags over the head. I remember the days of the New Orleans Saints, they called them the Aints, and they had bags over their head. And so did the Orioles. The Orioles were that bad that the fans were showing up 7, 8, 9, 10,000 fans a game at most. And there was us in the right field bleachers having a grand old time. It was watching this team play. And they had some of my players I really liked. They had acquired Rick Shue and Jeff Stone from the Phillies before the season. And I remember calling in the off season. I called Stan the Fan Charles on sports radio, who's still on Facebook, by the way, and told him Jeff Stone was God. It was a great trade, great player. Sure enough, Jeff Stone couldn't hit Major League pitching in Baltimore. I don't know what happened to him. It was pretty bad, but so I guess I was wrong there. He had base running problems. He couldn't hit. But then again, none of them could hit. I mean, Jim the Whammer Traber came up and he batted .222. Even Cal Ripken didn't do very well. And my man Freddie Lynn, love Freddie Lynn, been a Freddie Lynn fan since the beginning. He's towards the end of his career. The guy still hit 18 home runs in 300 at-bats, which is pretty good. But he knocked in 37 runs. Think about that. Hitting 18 home runs, 37 RBIs. There was never anybody on base. The poor guy had to... I mean, I can only imagine how a veteran like Fred Lynn felt playing on that team. You know, I mean, Cal Ripken was still only in his 6th or 7th season. But Fred Lynn had been around since 1974. So, you know, he's in his 15th partial season and probably ready to just jump off a bridge. Well, you know, we had Wade Rowden and Carl Nichols kicking around. And again, I was a Keith Hughes fan in Philly, but he couldn't hit Major League pitching. I love the guy, though. Always been a big fan of his. But give you an idea how bad the pitching was. I went to a game during that streak. I believe it was during that streak. And Bill Boom Boom Scherer came into the game. He pitched only 4 games for the Orioles. And there's a reason why he pitched only 4 games for the Orioles. And Scherer, he gives up a home run to right field. I remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, I've had a little bit to drink, so I don't know all that's going on around me. And then a minute later, I thought they were showing an instant replay as there was another ball hit into almost the exact same spot. It wasn't a replay. Another home run given up by Bill Scherer. He was terrible. But then again, almost all of them were. And it was funny watching this team play. We saw Curt Schilling come up. He got beaten up for the 3 appearances he made in the major leagues. You had a guy like so many of these guys. You know, Craig Worthington, who came up and it was actually a starter for a couple of years, wasn't very good. I mean, Terry Kennedy, the veteran, was kicking around at catcher. He's backing up Mickey Tettleton, who actually started to develop a little bit after leaving Oakland. But watching this team win 54 games, and actually surprised that they won 54 games. But skipping ahead, they were so bad going back. They were on the cover of Sports Illustrated during their losing streak. I mean, they were 0-21. And I still remember the headline in the newspaper, 0-21. That's why they call them the O's. I mean, it was just... I had never seen a team this bad in my lifetime. Now, a couple teams actually were worse. You know, I mean, obviously the 62 Mets were worse. The Tigers had a team, I believe, in the 2000s that won like 52 games or something like that. But to be there and watch it every day and watch it on TV and go to the games and see the total failure. The one good part? The stadium. It was a true old-time stadium. I loved going there and sitting in the bleachers. You know, it wasn't a fake old-time stadium. Me and the 7,000, 8,000 other fans, you know, who are in the stadium. The problem was parking. There was nowhere to park. They put us in a school up about half mile from the stadium, and they back us in 3, 4, 5 deep. And you couldn't get your car out until the guy who's in front of you decides he wants to leave. I remember one guy had his, I think they called it, what do they call it, the alcohol and Hawaiian punch, and he spilled it all over my white car bumper. I mean, it was crazy. It was truly crazy, but at the same time, it was fun. It was the innocence of youth, which of course has a lot to do with it. You know, I'm 18 years old. I'm on my own, going to the games. I went to some games with some great friends. We had great time going to the games. You know, we have some memories, and we have memories of a really, really bad team. And for those that are familiar with this team, believe me when I tell you, they were horrible, horrible. And that was the year that my Brewers were in it until the end, only to lose the last 3 games of the season and not make the playoffs, losing out to Boston. But it was still a great, great time. It's a memory that I treasure. It was a horrendous, horrendous team. I watched players like Pete Stanisic, and I watched the end of Don Ossie's career. But either way you look at it, it was great. And that's why SwamiLee remembers the 1988 Baltimore Orioles. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you will tune in for the next SwamiLee Remembers, where he might be remembering some sporting events. He might be remembering something from the entertainment industry. Could be something totally different. You never know. If you like this video, I'd appreciate that. Leave me some comments, positive or negative. I can take it. I'm a big boy. And keep your eyes open for some other videos from SwamiLee. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. And I hope that you have a great time. And we see you again soon. Thanks so much.